So I want to talk to you all about child abuse and the Balenciaga scandal. As you all have heard by now, most of you have probably heard about the scandal with Balenciaga. They're this top tier fashion designer company, and they had this ad campaign or a photo shoot recently where they depicted children in all types of compromising poses that would suggest child porn and child bondage, and people were outraged. They were crying out, they were outraged, and they were trying to get Balenciaga canceled. And, Kanye West has spoken out about it and things like that. And the thing is here, before Balenciaga scandal, child porn and child sex trafficking, child abuse has been prevalent throughout this country for many years, even before that. If you can even recall just a few years ago where Jeffrey Epstein, who was this wealthy billionaire man, had been indicted because they said he had this island where he would take young girls to underage minor girls and he would have sex with them, and there's all these celebrities were coming to this island with him, and he had this woman by the name of Ghislaine Maxwell help him recruit these underage girls so he can sleep with them, and then these girls would to recruit other girls, and it was a scheme that was going on for many years until he finally was indicted. And conveniently, they said he took his life while he was in prison. And, I don't know. But I just find it very convenient that, he ended up taking his life, and he probably was going to expose more names of people who were involved in it with them. And, the thing is, this has been covered up for a long time. Child abuse is happening. Children are being taken out of their homes, not only through, not only is sex trafficking one of the key factors of child abuse that's going on, but children are being taken out of the homes through foster care. And I talk about foster care a lot because when my children were first taken out of the home, I saw how they could lie on people who are poor, who have no money, people who have no one to adequately represent them in court, and they can take their children, just strip the children away from the home and keep them in a situation where the children are subjected to bondage, or subjected to inadequate health care. They're not treated properly. They're placed in these authoritarian style group homes where they bark at them like they're drill sergeants, like the children are prisoners, and then they tell them what to do, and they put them in isolation and punish them for every little thing. A lot of times the children were in these group homes that couldn't even see their parents. They go months without even seeing their parents or talking to them, especially during COVID. And my children were taken out during that time. And you would see that the children, even in juvenile detention centers, would sometimes sit inside of a building and not even go outside for months at a time, or wouldn't have, access to adequate health care. They'd have problems. They need medication, could not get it. And sometimes they were subjected to abuse as well, sexual abuse or whatever. And it's been reports of this. And a lot of times these kids cannot speak out. And so these children are suffering every day. It's not just children who are, suffering at the hands of these top-notch designer companies. The thing is, these children are suffering too, and there's no one to speak out for these children because they're of low socioeconomic demographic, and it's not for the world to see. No one's speaking out for these children because there's a lot of time they make it feel like, oh, well, the parents were bad, they're poor, they didn't take care of their children, and make you think that these kids come from bad families who deserve this. And a lot of times these parents have not done anything. All they needed was probably a little guidance, or a lot of times they can even lie. And the same people who are behind a lot of this sex trafficking, a lot of the child pornography, are a lot of the same people who are behind these children being held in foster care. And God is about to start judging, because see, the church needs to speak out. There are people who are inside the courts who are part of this. There are people who are doing things in organizations, and they're mistreating God's children. They're doing things defiling God's children. And you can't say anything because they're covering it up. They have all the power, and it's like we can't say anything unless more people speak out. And it's like, what can they do? Can they take the children of all of us if everyone speaks out? Because God's going to be judging. He has a church here. We're part of his church. And a lot of people get mad and say, oh, well, God should do something. God should save these children. Why doesn't he do anything? God helps his people, his children, by having his church do what they're supposed to do. And when the church is not doing what they're supposed to do, how can the children get their help? How do you think the children get their help? When you're sitting here and you're not praying, you're not fighting, you're not speaking out. I've written an entire book and I talked about it. Not one person stood up to help me. I contacted the church. Not one person stood up to help me. I'm quite sure that those children who were being abused, there was someone who's spoken out. Like in the case of Jeffrey Epstein, those women had spoken out many times and tried to get him arrested for many years. It was covered up through the judicial system. It was covered up, and it took someone to finally, the FBI to finally come in and investigate this man. But this stuff has been going on behind the scenes because of powerful people who hold all the influence, who hold all the authority, who hold the money and all the power can cover it up. And this is something that's wicked and evil, and it's something that is allowed to happen through the power of Satan. And that's why this is something that the church has to fight. It's a spiritual battle. And when the church do what they're supposed to do, when they're praying, when they're fasting, when they're speaking out, and they're putting forth action, when they're on these jobs and they're speaking out, and they're not just sitting there collecting a paycheck, because you're in this position for a reason. I talk about this all the time. Many times the church has been put in these positions for a reason. But our children are suffering, and guess what? You're letting it happen. If you're not using your voice or your position of authority or whatever position you have to do something on behalf of these kids, then you're going to be held accountable. A lot of you are like, oh, it has nothing to do with me. That's how people are. They're selfish. They're like, oh, well, it doesn't involve me. It's not my children. Or what can I do? I'm one person. One person can speak out and give the word to another person, and more people can stand up. You have a voice. You're supposed to use it, because when the time comes, God is going to start judging. He's going to ask his church, what have you done to help my people? What have you done to help my children? The children are the greatest in his kingdom. And like I said, those who have defiled his children, you're going to be destroyed. I'm going to read something to you because it talks about it in the Bible. See, those who have God's Holy Spirit, those who are saved, those who are his children, they are the temple of God. I'm going to read to you from the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 16 through 17. And it says, know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? If any man defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy. For the temple of God is holy, which temple ye are. So if you're defiling children, if you're corrupting them by abusing them, sexually assaulting them, by defiling these children who are the temple of God, God is going to destroy you. I'm going to tell you what it means to defile a person. I pulled up the definition of what it means to actually defile someone. And it says here, to make unclean or impure, such as to corrupt the purity or perfection of. Children are pure. Children are wholesome. And people destroy them and corrupt them by putting them in situations, exposing them to pornography, exposing them to sex, exposing them to abuse. They are destroying God's creation. And the devil is working and operating inside of these people to destroy the purity of the children. And God is going to destroy them. And those of you who did not speak out and say anything, children are children. Whether they're white, whether they're black, whether they're from rich families, whether they're from poor families, whether they're Mexican, it doesn't matter. These are God's children. He cares about them all the same. And you're supposed to be advocating for all these children, not just for a certain group. And when you don't speak out, when you don't help God's children, you know what's going on, and God has put this in your heart to do so. Believe me, you're going to have to answer to him, and he's going to judge you.